Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Real feel -4 degrees in Chicago today. But it always gets warmer when we talk about the beautiful sport of baseball. Players continue to report. We've got quotes in the media. Baseball has truly, to use a football term, kicked off in the year 2020. We've got another division to roll through on the show today. We went through the NL Central on the last podcast. We went through the Bakota and Roto World composite projections for each win, for each team and their win totals. I gave my ranges. I gave my predictions for the division. So you can check out that episode and find out how I think the NL Central will shake out this season. We will do the National League West today. And the team we'll end with is the obviously team I'm going to put in first, the Los Angeles Dodgers. But I wanted to start, before we talk about the Giants here at the top of the show, who I think will finish last in the division. So there's a little bit of preview. We'll see how the middle of the division shakes out. But I wanted to talk about a quote that I saw just before the show today, and that is from Cody Bellinger. So Cody Bellinger, an excellent player, a brilliant player, one of the best players in Major League Baseball, now is forming one of the best outfield duos we've ever seen with Mookie Betts. Obviously, he's been pretty peeved off about the Astros sign-stealing scandal. And I've said on this show, time and time again, that we can keep talking about this thing if we want. But here's the bottom line. No championships are getting stripped, nor should they be, because you cannot prove to me how much sign stealing impacted the game. I'll believe you that it impacted it. But when I hear former Major League Baseball hitter Sean Casey, an all-star, saying I actually got worse when I knew what pitch was coming, when I see that Altuve's OPS is higher on the road than at home where they could better execute these cheating tactics, and when I go back and look through the box scores of the World Series and see that the Astros had a game where they scored 1 run at home, you can't tell me the impact is measurable of this sign-stealing scandal. And when you can't measure the impact, and it's very clearly not over the top, if anything, it's within the margins, and I know the margins are important, but it's within the margins, then you can't take away the World Series. So that's where we're at. Punishment's been handed down. Nothing else is coming. You're not getting a World Series ring, Los Angeles. So I've been saying time and time again, move on. It's better for the game. Because nobody is looking at you pointing fingers from the Astros and going, oh, poor Dodgers. Oh, they couldn't win the World Series because of the cheaters. No, it just sounds whiny. This was Cody Bellinger's quote today. I thought Manfred's punishment was weak. Fair opinion. Giving them immunity, meaning the players. I mean, these guys were cheating for 3 years. I think what people don't realize is Altuve stole an MVP from Judge in 2017. Everyone knows they stole the ring from us. So Altuve stealing the MVP, that was just the writers not picking Judge, who had better numbers across the board. I don't see how that has anything to do with stealing signs, other than Altuve's performance being better. But you should have more of a problem with the voters for Aaron Judge that they didn't give him the MVP that year. And everyone knows, this is a ridiculous quote, everyone knows they stole the ring from us. You know who stole the ring from you, Cody? Yourself. Why? Because you were one of the most important batters in the middle of that lineup, and in the World Series, catch this, on 28 at-bats, you batted 143 and you struck out 17 times. So what signs were the Astros stealing to get you to strike out 17 times, Cody? It doesn't make any sense. Why are you doing this? I have seen this across my life in baseball. Baseball players are the absolute worst when they have an opportunity to blame something else for their poor performance. They are the worst. I have never seen people complain about field conditions so much than in the sport of baseball. Oh, Lord, watch a pitcher throw 2 walks in an inning and start kicking the rubber because he thinks there's something wrong with it. Or players switch out his bat, or the helmet's tight, or the umpire sucks. It's just the worst sport ever at all levels. I've seen college baseball players, pro baseball players. I've talked to high school baseball players, travel ball players, non-travel ball players, 8-year-olds, 18-year-olds. They all do it the same. They complain, they complain, they complain, they complain. It's always somebody else's fault, and then they try to throw at people. It's not appealing. Cody, just step up, man. Be like, listen, they cheated. I'm really upset about it. Those players should have been punished. That's a fair opinion. And say, but we got to move on and focus on next year. And there were certainly things I could have done in that series to make sure that we still beat them. Instead of saying, they stole the ring from us. They took it from us. They stole it right out of our hands. We should have had it. The only way they won, and the only reason they won, is because they were cheating. Not because me, arguably the most important hitter in the lineup, batted 143 and struck out 17 times in 7 games. 17 out of 28 at-bats. Sit down, Cody Bellinger. There's no sign stealing involved there. And right, so you're setting yourself up, by the way. This is the worst part of this for the Los Angeles Dodgers. You are setting yourself up to be laughed at. Laughed at. If the Astros go out and win 101 games this year, and the Dodgers do what they're going to do, which is win a bunch of games, and they happen to meet in the World Series again, and you get beat when we know there's no cheating, what's the excuse now? I mean, these quotes will come back and bite you. Bite you hard. So you better be damn sure that their cheating is the only reason they won. And if you're Cody Bellinger, the way you played in that series, if you are that sure that them stealing signs is the only reason they won, you need to check yourself. Right? This is something that happens across baseball and across sports, but specifically this game, complaining, whining. It's always somebody else's fault. And I hate to see that in competitors. Complain about the cheating. Point it out. Say it should be punished. Then move on and take your next at-bat. That's why people in this country love football more than anything else. Football, we catch guys doing stuff all the time. And you know what? People will complain about Deflategate, but the Colts organization isn't saying that they should have been Super Bowl champions. There aren't players because they know they got outplayed in so many other areas than just an inflated or deflated football. This is such a problem for baseball that I keep seeing these quotes. Nobody, and it makes it just, and then if you're saying this, if people believe you, Cody, guess who you just turned off from baseball? Everybody that believes you there and thinks that they stole the ring from us. Well, why on earth would I watch if they're all cheating? That isn't great for the game, right? Nobody's helping themselves here. This is just, everybody should just move on. Move on. It's unbelievable to me. Okay, we got the National League West to go through today. And it's an interesting division at the middle, I guess. It's a difficult division to predict because there's a lot of teams that are just so far behind the Dodgers. Dodgers certainly going to be at the top of the division, but we will dive in team by team through the entire NL West on this show today. We'll start with the bottom, move up through the division. We'll go over the PECOTA rankings, and we will preview the National League West this year. And I love the team that the Dodgers have formulated. I love watching all those players play. And to clarify, I love watching Cody Bellinger play. I love it. But nobody's helping themselves here. All right? We'll step aside, take a break. Follow us on Twitter at GSMC_baseball. On the other side, we talk about the San Francisco Giants and their first year in a long time without Bruce Bochy and how that will go in the 2020 season. You're listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Baseball Podcast, National League West, going through it today. Perfect day to go through it, too. With the Cody Bellinger quote, led the show with that. Just remember, 2017 World Series, Cody Bellinger, 143 average in 28 at-bats, 1 home run, and 17 strikeouts. Went up to bat 29 times, 1 walk, 17 Ks. For those of you who don't know, that means 12 times he didn't strike out, and 17 times he did, which means he struck out more than he didn't, which is a really horrible stat, if you've ever watched baseball, by the way. National League West, let's start with the San Francisco Giants at the bottom of this division, and that is where they will finish at the bottom of the division. First, I want to go over the PECOTA standings. I did this to start the National League Central. So the PECOTA rankings, trusted by a lot of sources in baseball, very popular projection model, and baseball projections are much more accurate than most other sports projections because it's such repeatable motions, and we do have a lot of statistics for this game. I mean, just compared to soccer, there's nothing like this that's even close to this. We talk about the Dodgers. They are predicted at the top at 102.5 wins, which is incredible. They are 99.9% chance to win the division, 99.9% chance to make the playoffs. The San Diego Padres, 79.3 wins, their projection, 18.5% chance to make the playoffs. Diamondbacks, 78.9 wins, 15% chance to make the playoffs. Rockies at 76 wins, 8.4% chance to make the playoffs. And the San Francisco Giants at 68 wins with a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs. So let's start with those Giants. We just talked about their PECOTA win projection, 68-93. Roto World has them at 66 and 96. And right now, this is the type of season for the San Francisco Giants. It's a transition year, and you can see with all the signings they're making that they are just trying to make sure people in the Bay are still somewhat interested in Giants baseball, and they really have no intention of winning anything this year. I put them on my cross them off list for the World Series. I do not. I think you can already cross off the San Francisco Giants, and it's just when you look at the lineup, it's a lot of good names. It's a lot of guys that, if you aren't paying a lot of attention, you can look at the lineup card and you can almost get excited about it. I mean, at one point, this lineup would be pretty fierce. You ready? Mike Yastrzemski leading off, Buster Posey, Brandon Belt, Evan Longoria, Alex Dickerson, Brandon Crawford, Hunter Pence, and Wilmer Flores. Johnny Cueto, Jeff Samardzija, Kevin Gossman, Drew Smyly in the rotation. You're like, man, that sounds like a great team. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it just isn't so much a great team now. Now, you can make an argument to me if you're a Giants fan, I suppose, that all these old, I don't want to say washed up because they're still good ball players, just not as productive as they once were. Ball players are going to come in. They'll gel underneath the type of organization that the San Francisco Giants run, believe in the first-year manager, and all discover their old talent and be this super team that makes a run in the National League West. That's a lot of ifs. That's a lot of if, then this. And if you basically need a limit of about 3 if this, then this when you're talking about your baseball team. If you're saying, well, if Cueto gets back to his Cy Young form, and if Samardzija plays his best season, and if Gossman does this, and if Posey rediscovers his power, and if Evan Longoria is that MVP type player once again, and if Hunter Pence can really hit for a good average, it's just too much. Too many ifs. It's like, when you're planning your route, well, if I catch this train and then this train's slightly delayed, and if I get on this one, then I can get, it's just too many ifs. And just a lot of ifs on an old San Francisco Giants team. So what's my range? I'm going to start at 55 wins the low. There are a lot of experienced players here, and I would really be shocked if they only won 55 games. Because there is experience there. They do know how to string together some sort of wins. But you can see some injuries hitting this team with the age and experience. The rotation just collapses on the back end. Their bullpen's not very good. There's certainly a path to 55 wins here for the San Francisco Giants with the type of talent they have in. In terms of what I think will happen this year, I think some of those injuries will happen. I think they're going to win 59 games. 59-105 is my record prediction for the San Francisco Giants. I'm not mad at what they're doing either, though, because there really was no path forward for them this year in the National League West. And that's kind of a shame. When you look at the top of the division, if there's one team that's so unbelievably dominant over everybody else, it's just hard to see a path forward. It's hard to map out your direction to a division championship. Because you want to win the division, so you get into the series, and when you're in the series, it doesn't matter if you're better or worse than a team, you could win it. One games are crapshoots, right? But getting into a series, which is why winning the division is important. You never know what can happen. And if you look at your division, you have the Dodgers up there. What are we going to do this? What are we going to waste a lot of money and swing for the Dodgers this year? That's not smart. So let's do this. Let's get a lot of guys, one-year deals, a lot of guys the fans are familiar with. We'll try to sell some tickets early in the season, create some juice. Hopefully they start a little fast. Hopefully there's some articles. Hey, the Giants have something here. Cueto looks like his old self, and look at Buster Posey. And, maybe it's a good shot. It's like when the Reds brought back Bronson Arroyo. That was for me. That was for guys that have loved the Reds their whole life and just wanted to see him pitch one more time, right? And we've seen some of the Pablo Sandovals in their minor league system. They're just trying to get some names, take a little victory lap from the World Series they won, and just see how they can do at selling tickets and being all right and competitive in some games, but they're not a baseball team that is a threat for the playoffs or the postseason. And I'm not mad at them. It's a first-year manager. It's the start of a rebuild. They're a great organization, and I think they will bounce back before you know it. It's just going to take some time, as it usually does with baseball. But this is not a bad interim plan. Just reading the lineup kind of gets you excited, makes it fun to play with in MLB The Show. Not that their overalls would be high, but you've got some interesting figures there. Some really interesting figures, which makes it fun. But when you're Mike Yastrzemski, who's supposed to be the young guy that gets better in this lineup, kid's 29. Right? He had 21 home runs last year in his first season, but you don't even have potential for development on this Giants roster. And that's important when you look at these projections and how I do these win ranges. Right? What's your potential? Can I see a guy making that type of jump? Now, is Yastrzemski going to make a jump to a 30 home run, 40 home run guy? No. 900 OPS guy? No. And he's the only one right now projected by Roto World to be above an 800 OPS, which is just not good enough. These guys are not good enough anymore. The names are there, but these guys just aren't good enough for the San Francisco Giants. Be a really cool story if they found a way to put it together, though. Really cool story. Just don't see it happening. And their bullpen's atrocious. And it'll be a bad year in San Francisco. We'll see how that new manager balances things. You don't even have Bruce Bochy there to say he'll coach everybody up. So rough times for the San Francisco Giants, but fun times. Enjoy the first month of the season when you're competitive. And then see if you can just put butts in the seats because it's a Giants game. Right? Lower ticket prices a bit. Stay afloat. Give fans hope for the future. All those fun types of things. A transition year for the Giants. The rest of the division thinks they're a little more competitive. The next team we talk about in the National League West, it's a lineup that makes you squint your eyes twice. It's kind of mind-blowing that it exists. The Colorado Rockies. We'll talk about them on the other side of the break and my projections for the Colorado Rockies in the 2020 season. You're listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
GSMC Baseball Podcast. Welcome back into the show. Follow us on Twitter at GSMC_baseball. Rolling through the National League West, I predicted the San Francisco Giants 59 wins with a range of 55 to 81. Now, the 81 scenario for the Giants is all these old guys actually pan out in some sort of way. And just the organization is so strong, there's some young pieces you don't see coming. And I believe in the Giants as an organization, and I could certainly see 81 wins this year if everything went right, and even some things that I don't think are possible going right. The next team, the Colorado Rockies, are projected at 76.6 wins by Pacoda, 74 wins by RotoWorld, and they have a pretty wide range for me because this lineup is explosive. And we can talk about how much the Colorado mountain air assists these players. I think it's one of those things that certainly helps in some sort of way, and the stats bear that out. But what's the difference between that and playing in Great American Ballpark in July? Ball flies there too, shorter porches. It's not something that I love to read into all that much. I think that the Rockies have kind of played into the notion that they have explosive lineups by just having explosive players in their lineups. And that's exactly what the Rockies have done again. It's going to be a classic Rockies team. Oh my gosh, their lineup can drop 13 on your head any night. And their rotation is awful. And their bullpen ain't much better. But if they score enough runs, they'll beat you. And they could go on a run where the rotation figures it out, bullpen figures it out, and all of a sudden, you are winning serious games. Because this is a deadly lineup. You've got Trevor Story, who RotoWorld projects at 35 home runs. David Dahl could be a 20 home run guy. Nolan Arenado, we'll see if he stays, but right now still on the roster. High OPS, Charlie Blackmon in that lineup. Daniel Murphy could be an 800-plus OPS guy. Ryan McMahon could hit 23 home runs. He's a guy that's potential for that. Sam Hilliard, and then Tony Walters. Walters, by far and away, the worst hitter in this lineup, but Hilliard at the back end, batting 798 is his OPS. Near an 800 OPS guy. Right? You've got 900-plus OPS. Those are elite baseball players. You get to 1,000, it's absolutely crazy. 800 to 900, those are good hitters to all-star level hitters. 700 to 800 are about your average hitters. And then below 700, you're not doing very well. And there's only one guy below 700 projected by RotoWorld in this Colorado Rockies lineup. And most of them are over 800, and a couple could get over 900 OPS this year. That's a great lineup. That's a lineup that's going to score a lot of runs. It's going to put a lot of runs on the board. Their rotation, though, scary, as in possibly scary bad. John Gray, slotted to be an ace. He's a 28-year-old who's never had less than a 3.67 ERA, which he had in 2017 in just 110 innings pitched. This is not an ace of any sort of rotation that'll compete in this division. You can get excited about Marquez, Kyle Freeland, I guess. You're relying on Jeff Hoffman trying to eat up innings at the back end. It's just not a good situation for Colorado on the mound. Scott Oberg was your highest-rated pitcher last year, and he's a reliever that's going to be a mid-3s ERA guy. And then the rest of your bullpen is questionable. And I just don't see the Rockies being able to pitch well enough to win a division this year. No way. Not this division, for sure. And this is another reason why the projections are so favorable for the Los Angeles Dodgers, is that it's just so overwhelming, the Dodgers roster compared to everybody else. It's one of those where it kind of breaks the math to where that's why the projection's so high. That's why all the computer models are like, the Dodgers are so much better than everybody else. And this Rockies team could really score a lot of runs. So when I talk about their range, it's difficult to pin down. Because this could be a 68-win roster. They could be in the 60s. Look at the rotation. You're relying on John Gray at the top. All those guys have bad years. Certainly possible. Have their lower projection years. It'll be one of the worst rotations in baseball. In that ballpark, they'll be giving up tons of runs. Tons of runs. And immediately you put pressure on your lineup. Makes it harder on them. You suffer a couple of random injuries throughout the year. Guys just aren't hitting as well. The cloud hangs over the organization because Arenado's not traded. And then they ship him off, Nolan Arenado, halfway through the year. This could certainly be a team that falls into the 60 to 70 win area. That is on the table for the Colorado Rockies. So I put my floor at 68 wins. But what's also on the table is them winning a bunch of close games when they're not blowing people out with their bats, or their bats like winning a lot of games 7-6, 8-7. Right? And then when their pitching staff does well, they're always scoring enough runs. They do really well in one-run games. The pitching staff has solid years. Bullpen just gets a tick better. They're still not great, but the lineup just clicks on all cylinders. It's overwhelming, and they win a bunch of one-run games. All that is certainly possible. They could get to 86 wins this year. 86 wins, possible. There's not maybe if they trade for a piece at the deadline, which seems to be the opposite of the thinking for the Colorado Rockies, they could push 90. But in this division with the Dodgers at the top, the Dodgers will feast on that lineup. It's going to be hard to stack up wins. I lowered the win totals for everybody in this division by 3 or 4 than what I originally thought because of how dominant the Dodgers are at the top of the division. They changed the math because they're going to beat up so badly on the rest of this division. They changed the math. They make all these teams, like the Rockies, are a team that I think is significantly better than the Pittsburgh Pirates. Significantly better. I could see them finishing with the same win total. It's just one of those things where the Pirates do not have a Dodgers beating up on them every other week, it feels like. And the entire NL West will. So I kind of ticked down the win totals for everybody from what I originally thought because of how good I think the Los Angeles Dodgers will be this year. So my prediction for the Colorado Rockies in 2020 is 75 and 87. I think they finished at 75 and 87. I think that a lot of guys have the years you expect. I think that Arenado hangs around to the deadline, but then does get traded. The rotation will probably be as expected. I don't see many surprises here. I don't see guys with potential jumps. I don't see any of that happening. I see them being a team that scores a lot of runs, gives up a lot of runs, kind of like the Adam Dunn, Ken Griffey Reds. Kind of like a lot of Rockies teams we've seen in the past. They win 75 to 80 games, and probably 75. And, they were competitive in stretches. Maybe they'll be in a wild card race. And August is exciting, but September isn't. And it's just the Rocky season this year. I think that's what'll happen in Colorado. Not exactly a bold prediction since I'm one off the other projection models, but I really think they nailed the Rockies. There's a lot of data on the Rockies too. There's not a lot of big wild cards throughout their lineup. So I think the projection systems did well. I agree with them. 75 wins. Pacoda had them at 76. Roto World at 74. But my range, 68 to 86. Could maybe win 86 if everything goes right. On the other side of the break, we'll move up the division rankings to the Arizona Diamondbacks. How will the D-backs do in the National League West this year? They made a couple signings. They're taking a swing at it. I'll dive into why I don't think that's smart either on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Continuing our preview of the National League West. Diamondbacks, Padres, Dodgers, Giants, and I always forget the 15. We just talked about them, the Rockies. There you go. It's unbelievable. This is why I think baseball should go to 4 teams a division. Because even if you know every team, I know every team, every logo, and most of their recent history and like most of their championship history. I've been nerding out looking at that stuff since I was 5 years old, right? I can name every team in Major League Baseball Easy, just got to give me some time. But give me a division in football, right? Any division. Let's pick one. AFC West. Broncos, Raiders, Chargers, Chiefs. NFC South. Falcons, Panthers, Saints, and Buccaneers. Boom, there's 4. Baseball, I know all 5. But for some reason, it's like a thing in the brain. You get past the 4th team, and you always struggle with it. We're doing a show on that. I've got the division in front of me. And I was still, man, who did I not say? Oh, the Rockies. Right? So it kind of makes it harder to follow the divisions. I think they should go to 4 teams. I think the NFL nailed that. But that's if they expand. So 2 more cities. I don't even know what cities want baseball. I think they should put a team in Puerto Rico. This has been my theory for a long time. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but fun tangent. I think that the Tampa Bay Rays, I know the infrastructure is not great, but build a facility, right? Make some solid infrastructure, make it super affordable for the Puerto Rican people. It's a territory of the United States. So guys, you don't need passports to fly down there. It's not too far away. It's basically like a trip to Florida. So the travel aspect of having a Puerto Rican team wouldn't be bad. And they love baseball in Puerto Rico. So you got American territory. So it sticks in the United States, although they don't really care about that. Hashtag Toronto. But it sticks essentially in that United States or the grip of the United States. You have a place that's super interested in baseball, super passionate about it, would fill the stadium up if you made it just affordable enough for the people of Puerto Rico. And you call them the Puerto Rico Rays. Instead of, the elderly civilians in Tampa Bay, although I know there are plenty of young people that live in Tampa Bay, but they haven't been able to fill that stadium for years, right? Tampa Bay struggles filling any sports stadium. And especially the Tampa Bay Rays, even if they're winning 90-plus games a year. So take them, move them right down to Puerto Rico. Maybe do a trial, play half the games in Puerto Rico. You build a facility there, and then that team can just focus on some Puerto Rican prospects, right? Maybe even they're the Dominican Republic Puerto Rican team, and where baseball's just super popular, and it'd be great. I think it'd be a great product. I think it'd be a great addition. And I think Major League Baseball should consider it for expansion. I've researched this. There's no talks of this at all. This is not sourced. This is just, I don't know, let's just do it. Let's put a team there. I think that'd be a lot of fun for baseball. Weather's great all year, right? I think it's a good idea. Just telling you. We move up through the division. Let's talk about the Arizona Diamondbacks. So according to PECOTA, Arizona Diamondbacks, 78.9 wins, 83.1 losses. Just occurred to me, I might be saying PECOTA wrong. I don't think I am. I'm sure there's some baseball projection nerd listening that would correct me on it, and I apologize for that. According to Roto World, 80 and 82 would be the season for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Listen, this lineup's probably as good as San Diego's, who gets a lot of credit for their lineup right now. The Padres may be a higher ceiling than the Arizona Diamondbacks, but there are some young, interesting bats in this Diamondbacks rotation. That's for sure. One of them is Ketel Marte, who is the other Marte. So they just had Starling come onto the team, which is a signing I don't think they needed to make because I don't think they have any sort of shot to win this division. But Arizona, they think that maybe they're a wild card team, and it's because of this guy, Ketel Marte, who finally in his age 25 season, most at-bats he's ever had, 32 home runs, 92 RBIs, 981 OPS. If he repeats that next year or even gets better, which is probably their hope that he gets better, this really changes the dynamic of this Arizona Diamondbacks lineup, because then it makes guys like Eduardo Escobar, David Peralta, Christian Walker, they start to hit higher up on their projections. A lot of guys with potential 800 to 900 OPS. If you just have that MVP there and everybody else plays better, this is a team, I think, and I reflected that with my ceiling, this is a team that could get to 88 wins in a really tough division, the National League West, right? And if the Dodgers weren't so dominant, it could be maybe a 92, 93 win team. But I think this lineup could certainly get to 88 wins, and their rotation has a guy like Madison Bumgarner, who does have ace potential. Mike Leake is a professional, and their rotation isn't going to kill them. It's not horrible. It's not puke-inducing. It's not great. It's not a rotation that I expect to have a team win 88 games. It's not an 88-win rotation. It's if the offense clicks and we win a bunch of close games, much like I said about the Rockies, certainly a team that could get to 88 wins. Bullpen isn't horrible. I like Archie Bradley. They're a team that could certainly get to 88 wins if the lineup's right and if it all goes right, essentially, for the lineup. You get what I'm saying. But I just don't think they needed Starling Marte. I think I could have said the exact same sentence. They could have got a cheaper option than Starling Marte. And the same would have been true what I just said about the Arizona Diamondbacks this year. I just don't think Starling Marte helps them win moving forward in terms of this season. Because the National League West, it's a wash, guys. Dodgers have got it this year. They'll need a serious downturn. And I'm not one in giving up, but I'm one that also wants to make sure you don't make any silly decisions. And the Diamondbacks could be compromising some future potential for trying to go for it this year. And much credit to them. But this is not a World Series rotation by no means. This is not a World Series lineup by any means. It's a lineup that could win some games, that has some real potential in it in some spots. And I think they'll be interesting this year. Arizona Diamondbacks, range 74 to 88 wins. I think they'll be 78 and 82. They could easily have a winning season, however. 78 and 82 for the Diamondbacks this year. Bullpen isn't as good as the Padres. 78 to 82 feels right. 78 and 82 for the Arizona Diamondbacks this season. On the other side of the break, I mentioned the Padres a few times. We'll talk about the team just below the Dodgers in my eyes, but my prediction might have them finishing below the team we just talked about, the Diamondbacks. Give you some specifics on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
GSMC Baseball Podcast. Give us a follow on Twitter at GSMC_baseball. And we are rolling through the National League West. Just talked about the Arizona Diamondbacks, who I think will be interesting this year. I think this is an interesting division. It's just not as interesting as the other two divisions in the league, right? I feel like a lot of divisions are interesting in baseball. It's interesting because of how close the Rockies, the Padres, and the Diamondbacks are. There's no clear-cut second team in this division, which is going to help the Dodgers' win total this year. So when we look back at the last time a team was really this dominant with this type of duo, flash back to 2001 in the Seattle Mariners. Right? Remember Ken Griffey and Alex Rodriguez? That's the last time there's been a duo like Betts and Bellinger. And they won 116 games. And you go roster through roster, there's some Dodgers fans that make an argument they're a better team. 116 wins from that Mariners team. Now, they didn't even make the World Series, but 116. In that division that season, there was an Athletics team that won 102 games. And that's not going to happen this year in the National League West. Ain't nobody in this division outside the Dodgers sniffing 100 wins. So when you have that happening in your division, I think it'll elevate the Dodgers even more in terms of their win total, which I really think they could push that record, the Los Angeles Dodgers this year. It's certainly on the table. Now, does baseball usually work out the way we all think it will? No. But they are by far and away the favorite in this division. The Padres, some think, are the second best team. Roto World has them at 82 and 80. While Pacoda has the Padres as a 79 and 82 team. So right around 500 for the Padres. They made some big splashes in the offseason last year. Not as many big signings in the offseason this year for the San Diego Padres. But their lineup, they got Tatis, young, really dynamic hitter at the top of the lineup. Tommy Pham, they like. Manny Machado, Eric Hosmer. And then it kind of falls off a little bit. I think I'd take the Rockies and the Diamondbacks lineup. It's so close between the Padres and the Diamondbacks. Really depends on Manny Machado. And it depends on Marte, not Starling Marte, the other Marte for the Diamondbacks. But they're very similar lineups. The Rockies are by far and away better than the Padres and the Diamondbacks. But I think the Padres can compete with the Diamondbacks in terms of the lineup. Their rotation's better too. Chris Paddock is a guy that could potentially have an ace-level season. That's because he's one season in, turning 24 years old, and he had a 3.3 ERA in 140 innings. So, listen, you give me a 3.3 ERA in your first pro season and you're only 23, you have ace potential. You have ace potential. So Chris Paddock, can he be an ace? Maybe. So Chris Paddock's an ace, your lineup works out. The Padres believe in their farm system. Some things really go right there. And your rotation is meh, but it's probably better than the Diamondbacks. You like some of the pieces in your bullpen, specifically your closer, Kirby Yates. Drew Pomerantz is there. Munoz is there. And the Padres have reason for hope, but here's the problem. It's the San Diego Padres. And is Paddock going to turn out to be like Maddox? No, probably not. Why? It's the San Diego Padres. Is Tatis Jr. going to reach his full potential? Probably not. Why? It's the San Diego Padres. And these types of questions will make fan bases angry. And I've liked a lot of teams with bad management, bad ownership, bad culture, bad history of winning. I have a bunch of those teams in my fandom. And I get mad too, but it's true, right? Will all the perfect things work out for this to be a perfect season? How many times has that happened in Padres history? Not much. Not often. And like Machado being an MVP. Tatis Jr. rising that level. Paddock being an ace. Back end of the rotation figures itself out. Helps your middle relief. Yates is one of the best closers in the big leagues. If all that happens, Padres can win 91 games. 91 wins. And if the Dodgers weren't so dominant, it could be 94. That's certainly on the table for the Padres. There's enough there in the lineup. There's an ace potential in the rotation. The bullpen is really good in some spots and could get better if the back end of the rotation picks it up for the Padres. They could win 91 games. Or they could win 75. That's my floor. Because, honestly, it's just everything goes wrong. Because it's the Padres. Machado doesn't have it. Way not worth the money. You're writing stories in May. Wow, what a mistake the Manny Machado contract was. Certainly possible. Tatis Jr., he's hit a ceiling. He's not really getting better. None of these other young guys are as good as we thought they were. Paddock is not an ace. In fact, he actually got a little bit worse after they got some film on him. Right? Those are all certainly possible things and things that feel like always happen to the San Diego Padres. And that their floor to me is 75 wins. And my prediction for this team, I actually think they finish below the Arizona Diamondbacks and only one game ahead of the Colorado Rockies. And I think the Padres go 76 and 86. Solid lineup. I like it. Tons of potential. And if you just changed out the logo and put, San Francisco Giants, I'd say they win 95. Probably not 95, but you'd feel a lot better about it. You'd feel a lot better about it getting closer to the 91 win, 92, 93 win range, depending on the Dodgers' success. Wild card team for sure. Second best team out west all year, but they're a threat because maybe if the Dodgers weren't in their division, they'd be a division champion somewhere else. Certainly the potential on the roster for the Padres to have that. The problem is the logo. That SD never really works out that way for the folks in San Diego. Maybe this is the year that it's different. I don't know. Maybe. But I think this team will win only 76 games. It's unfortunate, too, because I'm rooting for the Padres. I think they've got a really interesting stadium, interesting history. Fun team to control in MLB The Show. And this is the crazy thing. You play video games with the Padres, and all the bad stuff happens, and you always hit the floor of your projection. Like, this guy was supposed to bat 320. What's he doing? He's batting 286, striking out twice a game. I don't know what's happening. It's like there's no curse. What's going on with the Padres? Don't know. Unbelievable. So I've got every team in the division finishing below 500 except the team we'll talk about next. You know who it is. The Dodgers. How good will they be? What's my win prediction for them this season? Talk about that on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
GSMC Baseball Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at GSMC_baseball. I'm your host, Lukas Moore. And we are talking about the National League West. Finally getting to the best team in the division, the Los Angeles Dodgers. This is the most decided division, to me, before opening day in the history of me watching sports. Never have I seen in any division, in any sport, it already be over. Truly already be over. Maybe basketball with the Kevin Durant Warriors winning the West. Right? Maybe I saw that. But even then, it just, over the course of a 162-game season, right? So the Warriors getting beaten in a 7-game series was much more likely, and I could conceive of much easier than the Dodgers not winning the National League West this year. It is nearly inconceivable, both by eye test, by the classic way we talk about baseball, which is just throw the names at me. How's that sound compared to them? They win that. You go look at the advanced analytics in terms of past performance. They win that clearly by a wide margin over the rest of the National League West. You go look at future prediction performance. You put it through any projection model, and 99.9% of the time, the Dodgers win the National League West. It would be chaos. Chaos. CHAOS, chaos, if the Dodgers didn't win it. It would be a statistical anomaly of the highest order if the Dodgers did not win the National League West this year. It would be the most shocking thing that I have seen in my 20-odd years on this planet in sports if any other team than the Los Angeles Dodgers win the National League West this year. Do you get how wide of a gap it is at this point? And this is not just me. This is everybody. This is so clear. It's more than the Patriots ever have been a favorite in the AFC East. It's more than any team ever in the history of football has been a favorite in the division. Any team ever in the history of baseball has been a favorite in the division. This is they are unbelievably better than the rest of the division. Not necessarily the rest of the Major League Baseball or even the National League, but there's not a team here. I just went through it. I gave my ceilings. I was trying to be optimistic about these teams. Only the Padres are a team that I could even imagine, could even fathom having 90 wins this year in their best case scenario. Right? 90 wins, maybe, for the Padres. The fact that exists, and plus this Dodgers lineup is just cheating, almost. It's unfair. It's unfair. They have 102 wins. That's one standard deviation of all their simulations. Gives you 102 wins. Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger, Corey Seager in the 5 spot, A.J. Pollock, Will Smith, and one of the best prospects in baseball, Gavin Lux. Oh my Lord, that's incredible. Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, now David Price, Ross Stripling, Alex Wood. Oh, by the way, probably the best bullpen in the National League as well. Kenley Jansen, Pedro Baez, Joe Kelly, Jimmy Nelson, Blake Trinian. It goes on and on and on. And their farm system is stacked. So there might be a young stud that you don't even know about, that I don't even know about, that'll help this team pass deadline. Also, their prospects, they've got all of them. They have assets to move at the trade deadline to get better. Right? There is no conceivable circumstance. Not saying it's impossible, because obviously everything in sports is possible. But there is no conceivable circumstance, barring catastrophic injury that we've never seen. No conceivable circumstance where the Dodgers don't win this division. That is how wide the gap is. And that's why I put my floor on this team as the worst case scenario for the Dodgers this year. It's even hard for me to come up with it because I really don't think it's going to happen. But the worst case for me is 91 wins. And that's probably injury, and I don't even like to bake injury into those things. But 91 wins, I don't know, maybe there's some drama or something, right? You know, player infighting, something crazy. 91 wins, honestly. There's too much talent here. 91 wins. My ceiling for this team, the Dodgers, is the record. 117 wins. That's the ceiling for the Dodgers this year. I was going to put it at 120, but I'm not going to put it 4 games above what any team has been able to do in the history of baseball. I'm going to put it 117 because that's the record. But I could really see this team winning 120 games. 117 is their ceiling. Everything goes right. Buehler develops. Bellinger got better. Betts loves L.A., loves the outfield. They're stealing bases. Bullpen stays healthy. David Price regains his old form. Gavin Lux looks like not just a young prospect, but the next superstar. And all of a sudden, the Dodgers are 30 games up on the division, and it's still cold in some cities in Major League Baseball. I mean, it could get that bad. It could be a level of dominance we have not seen because of the division they are in, because of the talent they've had, and because they're in the less talented league. They get to play the Pirates and the Marlins and the Rockies and the Giants and the Diamondbacks and the Padres. And yes, it's all in their own division. And they're better than the Mets. They're better than the Nationals. They're better than the Phillies. They're better than the Reds. They're better than the Cubs. They're better than the Brewers. They are just better than everybody. And that's why they're such heavy favorites and why they really could be one of the best teams in the history of baseball this year. It's all combining for that for the Dodgers. But 91 wins to 117. Where do I think the Dodgers fall? I think they win 110 games. I don't think they'll get to the record. I think Clayton Kershaw's getting a little older. I think that some of the rotation projections might be a little friendly. I think that the lineup will click. They're still going to be a great team. I think they're going to win 110 games, which is 8 games above Pacoda. I just think they'll make another move at the deadline. They'll get better. They're a team that is just so dominant in so many spots. I'd be shocked if they didn't win 100. I mean, 100 seems easy. I think 110's in the cards. I really do. For the Los Angeles Dodgers. Meaning, by my predictions, let me do this math. The Dodgers would win the division if all my predictions were correct. So the Dodgers finish at 110 wins, then the Diamondbacks at 78, then the Padres at 76, and then the Giants all the way down at 59, the Rockies at, I put them at 75 wins. That means they would win the division by 32 games. Lord in heaven. 32 games they could win this division. I really think that's on the table, man. Could be one of the most easy division races in the history of baseball to predict. And I want you, because it's a sports miracle if they don't win this division. And I want this on tape so that we can go back to it and I can laugh at myself, but it really is a sports miracle if they don't win this division. It would be North Carolina State winning the NCAA tournament. It'd be beyond that, right? Think of the most astronomical thing that's ever happened in the history of sports. It's up there. Now, it won't be remembered as such because it's just a division race and we would see it coming and you'd kind of roll through the stories. It's not like a tournament game, so it would be that level of story. But in terms of shock value of how certain something is, I mean, this would be up there in professional sports in American history. No doubt about it. If that gets you excited for the NL West, I hope it does. If you're a Dodgers fan, you're probably excited. But hey, I gave some hope to the Padres. I said you could maybe win 91 games. That's a wild card team. Padres would love to see some playoff baseball. Diamondbacks, maybe if you have an MVP candidate in the lineup, maybe 88 wins is in the cards. The Rockies, you get to 85, maybe the rest of the league's kind of bad. You could sneak into the playoffs. Certainly a lot of great bats in that lineup. And the Giants, you know what? I don't hate your plan. You're not going to win a lot of games, but I don't mind it. If I'm a Giants fan, I'm not upset this year going to AT&T Park. I'm okay with it, right? You know, Dodgers are really good. Let's just watch some baseball this year, and we'll watch some guys we used to love, and they aren't as good anymore, but, you know, it is what it is. Bruce Bochy's gone, new era. We've got time on the rebuild. We've won plenty of World Series, right? So I think levels of excitement should be high for the whole division, and I think it'll take a lot of pressure off the rest of the division, the fact that the Dodgers are so good. Nobody's going to get fired because you didn't win the division this year, so everybody's going to try to stay afloat. Everybody will have hope, and that's what I think makes it an interesting division. But at the top, it is Dodgers, 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 Dodgers. The Los Angeles Dodgers are unbelievable favorites in the National League West. That'll do it for us on the show today. I thank you so much for listening. Remember, follow us on Twitter at GSMC_baseball. Would love for you to follow us there and all the other great podcasts on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Lukas Moore. We will see you on Monday. Thank you so much for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.